Peter Dutton, we've all witnessed the terrible scenes from Kabul in the last couple of days. Given the situation has been deteriorating since May, why is it that we are only now sending in planes to help get Australians and support staff out?
Well, Laura, Australia was very well advised by the Chief of the Defence Force and our defence planners to move earlier than now. And as you know, over the course of the last couple of months, we really have ramped up activity. All of our embassy staff, our defence staff, had already been evacuated. We didn't want to wait any longer, and I think we were prudent in acting sooner. We've also ramped up, of course, the activity in removing the locally engaged employees on commercial flights. People have been going out each day, so we've really ramped up the numbers who have left Afghanistan and come to Australia since April, and I think that has been the right approach for us, and I don't think the Americans expected the overtake to happen as quickly as it did. That's the reality, and obviously they still had significant people in Afghanistan, whereas we had no DFAT, no defence, no Home Affairs staff. We'd already moved those people out.
So who are we trying to get out now, and how many roughly are involved?
Our first priority, of course, is Australian citizens, so roughly about 130 across the country. But if people are outside of Kabul, it's obviously incredibly difficult to get them to Kabul and to the airport. We're also prioritising New Zealand citizens. We've been working very close with the New Zealanders, and we will provide assistance to them. And of course, those that have visas, the locally engaged employees, the Afghani nationals that we want to see come out. But already we've, since April, brought about 430 people out, which has been a very significant undertaking and a ramping up of the government's activity and the desire to get those people out.
Should we be thinking about assisting a broader group of people to leave Afghanistan, not necessarily to come to Australia, but people like prominent women, civil servants and the like, to get processed in another country, possibly to be resettled?
Well, the short answer is yes, and the Prime Minister's been very clear about that. We've had a look at some cases where people may not be eligible under the locally employed visa program, and those people could be eligible under the humanitarian program. There are also some extended family members that may be eligible under the humanitarian program, and we'll bring people in through that means. But already we're looking at other people, and obviously the humanitarian situation dictates that we can provide assistance, we will. And I think as this evolves over a period of time, there will be other people who will seek refuge either to Australia or to Europe or to America, etc. And we'll see how that plays out.
Well, David Kilcullen has said to us that the main issue for what happens in Afghanistan now is going to be, quote, a massive, massive morale boost for every jihadist on the planet. For 20 years, the most powerful superpower in history has tried to crush the Taliban, but they have successfully defeated the United States. Does that suggest a new level of threat for Australia?
Well, I think if you look at President Biden's words this morning, he was very clear that if another threat similar to al-Qaeda or to Osama bin Laden and the 9/11 attacks, if that manifests itself in Afghanistan, in Syria, Iraq, elsewhere, then the United States will strike. And so they should, and we would be supportive of them in disrupting any major terrorist attack, whether it was in the West or elsewhere. And the United States has the ability in the air, on the ground, to conduct such an attack, and I think people should be hearing that message loud and clear. You spoke before about what the Taliban have done and what they've achieved. I think what we need to reflect on is the failure of the ability of the Afghanis themselves to take up the arms that they were given, to utilise the training that was imparted on them. Many of those from the President down have abandoned their country, and in that circumstance, either today, next year or in 20 years' time, that makes for a very difficult exit and a huge gain and a huge win for Taliban or whoever it might be if the Afghanis themselves aren't prepared to fight for their own territory.
Will Australia recognise the Taliban government, and if so, when will you make that decision? And how significant is it that it looks like both Russia and China will recognise the Taliban regime, and what implications will that have for their influence in that country? Well,
I think first things first, Laura, the priority for us is to get Australian citizens out. and to get those locally engaged staff out that have provided assistance to Australians. Those that remain, bearing in mind, as I say, that many have already been taken out over the course of the last couple of months. That's the priority for us. We've taken a decision to deploy some troops to the UAE and also some aircraft and assets otherwise so that we can perform those extractions when it's safe to do so, when the airport is secure. And we're working closely with the Americans and the British in particular to that end right now. So I think that's the priority. In terms of what the Chinese might do or the Russians might do, well, that's an issue for them. But I think what is happening at the moment, and the most important priority now, is for the Taliban to understand that the world is watching their next move. The next move can be to treat women and treat young girls in the same fashion they have in the past, or they can abandon that barbaric practice and adopt a new method and a new approach. And I think the test is now on them, and they need to perform the first test, of course, otherwise, is to make sure that where they've given assurances that Allied forces can leave Afghanistan in an orderly and safe way, that they should honour that, and that should take place now over the coming days and weeks.
Does what looks like a belated decision to send planes in play to the impression that your government always waits too long and acts too late, whether it's on Afghanistan or COVID-19? I mean, how much damage has been done to the government from this perceived pattern of behaviour? The polls today suggest it's been pretty bad.
I think that is a political point, not a point based in the reality, the facts of the circumstance. And the situation for us is that we took the advice from our military planners to exit. We've done that, and I think it was the right decision to make.
Minister, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.